What's up, adventurers? My name is Platinum Phoenix, and welcome to a different style of Fire Emblem episode. So, I talked a lot about character stats at the start of the Let's Play, and since the specifics of each stat are some of the most confusing things in the game, I thought it would be nice to have all the explanations in one place if anyone would want to ever see them again. So, with that being said, if you like this style of episode, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, let's get to the stats. Is HP, which is what that blue bar is that had 19 next to clan. And it basically just tells you exactly how much damage a unit can take before they fall in battle. The next stat is strength, which just directly affects how much attack, physical damage a unit can do. Physical damage being from anything that isn't magic, which includes thrown weapons as well as bow and arrows. Both of those are included in strength stats. Magic is the next stat, which affects damage through magical tomes, like clan uses, or healing through staves, like how Fram uses her abilities. Why can I not? Oh, I can't. I'll wait here then. The next stat is dexterity, which actually directly affects hit rates as well as critical hit rates. Meaning the higher the user's dexterity is, the easier it is for them to actually land hits. And it also causes them to land more critical hits. Speed is a really important stat because it makes it so units can hit more than once per turn. The exact equation for that is that if a unit's attack, or if a unit's speed is equal to or more than 5 times the opponent's speed, then the user will attack twice. And it also affects the avoid rate of the opponent, which just means you dodge more attacks. The next two stats are actually very similar. They are defense, which each point of defense means you take 1 less damage from physical attacks, and then resist, which is the same as defense, except it's for magical attacks. So if you have high resistance, you take less damage from magical attacks. The last of the basic stats is luck, which is a weird one to go over because it's not what you would think. You would think it would be the critical hit rate would be luck, but it's not. It actually affects how often opponents critical hit you, and it also affects how often your units can find special healing items, such as different staves and different like vulneraries and elixirs later in the game. So the first of the combat stats is physical attacks, and it basically tells you exactly how much physical damage a character will do if they are doing physical damage. But that is before accounting for critical hits, the opponent's defense stat, or the weapon that you're being used, and if it's effective in the attack wheel or weapon triangle or not. The next stat is magic, which is basically the exact same thing except for magical attacks. It tells you how much damage a magic user will do. But that is also before criticals, before the opponent's resist stat, and before knowing what tome the character is using. The next stat is the hit rate, or the hit chance stat, and it basically just tells you chance of hitting an opponent, and it's the unit's hit stat minus the opponent's avoid stat is what the unit's hit rate or accuracy is. And going right along with that, actually, The next stat is the avoidance stat, which just tells you the avoid chance, or the chance of dodging the attacks of your opponent. And the equation is the exact same for the hit chance, except you change which units you're calculating for. So it's the opponent's hit chance versus your avoid chance. And after that is actually the critical hit rate, which tells you the likelihood of you landing a critical hit, which you will actually see at the bottom of every combat. It'll say crit chance and give you a number, which is really nice to have. We are just going to knock this one down. But that is basically calculated before the opponent's luck stat is applied, which is how they would lower your critical hit chance. And finally, not finally, there's a couple more. But next up is the dodge rate, which you would think is how much of a chance you have of avoiding an opponent's attack. But it's actually your chance of avoiding critical hits. So I was about to say it's less helpful, but it can be seen as more helpful to know that, because critical hits are much more scary than just being hit. And it directly opposes the opponent's critical hit stat. So it's almost more important to know it than just the chance of not being hit. And the next stat that is important to know is actually the range of your attacks, which is actually delineated by every single weapon in the game. I'm gonna move you over here because you are in danger. It's delineated by every single weapon in the game, which if I go into items, you can actually see. Well, you can't actually see behind my head. Let me take my model off so you can actually see. You can see under avoid is range. So the Iron Lance has a range of 1, which of course makes sense because that's how stabbing somebody with a lance would work. And that is delineated on every single weapon in the game, and is super important to know. And you are just going to fire him. And the last 3 stats are actually not considered combat stats, but I'm going to talk about them now anyway, because they are almost as important as the combat stats. The first one is your build, which tells you the physical size of the unit and determines if a heavy weapon will slow down the unit. Basically, the higher your build stat, the less slowed down you become from heavy weapons, which is really good because you don't want to be slowed down, because your speed is how you do extra attacks, and extra attacks is how you do more damage. Next up is SP, which is a little bit hard to go over, and I will actually go over later, but just know that you get SP when defeating enemies when equipped with an emblem ring. That is the most important part of the SP stat, because it's the only way to get it. And the last stat is your movement stat, which of course tells you how many squares a unit can move during a turn.